Okay, hello everyone. Welcome in our webinar, the first webinar of September. This is a webinar co-hosted between World Chefs and Nielsen-Massey. And here today with us, we have Chef Kriss Harvey. He's a chef ambassador for Nielsen-Massey and also an award-winning pastry chef, an expert in vanilla and chocolate. I had the chance to talk a little bit with him before, and I saw that he's very passionate. He lived everywhere, tried to masterize the art of pastry everywhere in the world, and today he will share his secrets on how you can elevate your pastry. So today we talk pastry. Hello, Chef Kriss.
Hello, and thank you for having me, and welcome everybody who is joining us from around the world. We just saw the country list, and it's very impressive, so I'm very excited. I wish I had another life to live so I could visit all these places, but from across the globe, we've seen people signing from Nigeria, Ireland, Myanmar, which is amazing, Singapore.
Macedonia, Qatar, everywhere,
Oh,
Nigeria.
amazing, amazing.
Pakistan.
You're either late for dinner
Mhm.
or you're ready to go to bed, but please stick with me. This is scheduled for 30 minutes. I'm gonna go a little bit longer. I'm gonna try to keep it entertaining and informative. To give you a little bit of background about me, if you don't know who I am, I am a pastry chef in Beverly Hills, California. I am a pastry chef, chocolatier, confectioner, and ice cream maker. I studied in France. I was trained by Emmanuel Rion, who is an MOF in ice cream. I trained in sugar candy with Pierre Mergelet, who's an MOF. I trained with an MOF of Boulanger, Cyril Vanderstoep. I was trained by Jean-Michel Perrichon and Joel Bellaway, who recently passed just a few weeks ago, who was a great chef. And I was trained in chocolate by Pascal Janvier, and I trained in Spanish pastry by Oriol Balaguer. So I'm one of these chefs that really believes that no matter how good you are or what you've accomplished, you can always get better and keep training and find expertise. I've been doing this for 35 years, and I find that the learning never stops. And I think that's probably why you're all here. So I'm going to make an unusual pâte de fruits. The traditional pâte de fruits that we've seen traditionally in France has been just all fruit puree, sugar, and pectin. The traditional method was to preserve fruit as the season came to an end and serve it in a chocolate shop or as a mignardises. But in this case, I'm going to integrate chocolate into it to really enrich in it. And it's a chocolate that I picked out after I traveled to Mexico last year. I met an amazing chocolate maker named Roberto Rita, and he's going to join us on here. So if we see him sign on, I'm going to have the person behind the camera, Parisa, let me know when he's on here. So if you might be able to ask him some questions as well. Roberto is a chocolate maker in Mexico, where the cacao beans come from Tabasco, Mexico, and Chiapas, Mexico, right where they grow all their coffee as well. And the vanilla is from nearby there as well. So I met Roberto last year when I was on vacation in Cancun. We had lunch together. We had the same tattoo, which is the Theobroma cacao. That's how passionate we both are about chocolate. And after I left Mexico and I enjoyed their amazing hospitality and their amazing ingredients, I promised to pay them back by using more Mexican ingredients. Nielsen-Massey recently brought on Mexican vanilla, which is amazing. It's the original vanilla that doesn't have to be hand pollinated. It was pollinated by a bee that the rest of the world doesn't have, making it very, very unique. It's very saying.
Roberto's here.
Roberto's here. Oh, hello, Roberto. So Roberto is here. So we might have some questions for him. But I brought his chocolate. I'm going to use the 68% chocolate today. And then, unlike traditional pâte de fruits, which is coated and rolled in sugar, I chose to grind up his cacao nibs, the fermented cacao nibs, and we're going to roll the pâte de fruits in that. And it is a perfect match for the raspberry. So let's talk about it. Our ingredients first. Okay, I have raspberry puree, Pontier. I have yellow pectin, Louis Francois, and mixed with a little bit of sugar. The sugar is going to help disperse the pectin and prevent it from clumping once it's introduced to the raspberry puree. I have glucose syrup at 42 DE. I have sucrose, regular table sugar. I have 1-to-1 water and citric acid, which I previously brought to a boil. The role of the Pectin is to thicken the jelly. The role of the acid is to permanently set the pectin. Once the acid is added at the proper temperature, the pectin sets permanently, and the jelly will be permanently set. And then, of course, I have his dark chocolate. That I have some molds, like traditional pâte, which is framed and cut into small squares. I'm going to put this in a small mold. It's 15 millimeters high by 26 millimeters in diameter. Let's talk a little bit about pectin, though. There are two types of pectin in this world, thermoreversible and thermoirreversible. So thermoreversible means it's a pectin that you would use if you're making a glaze for a cake or to thicken a sauce. When the pectin is warmed up, it relaxes and thins out. When you use irreversible pectin, once it's set permanently. So this is the kind of pectin you want to use for pâte or any kind of sugar candy that you want to have a firm texture to. Okay. It's also heat sensitive. So once the raspberry puree is warmed up to 50 degrees Celsius, I can then start adding the sugar previously mixed with the pectin. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to warm up the raspberry puree. And Priestley may want to get some overhead shots here momentarily. So again, we're going to heat the raspberry puree up to 50 degrees Celsius before we add our pectin and our sugar. And the importance of this is, as I said, it's thermoirreversible. So if the temperature drops below 40 degrees Celsius, the pectin is going to set prematurely, and then our candy will not work properly. It'll have a weird texture to it. And one of the important things to know about thermoirreversible pectin is that you want to add the remaining ingredients in small additions so you don't drop the temperature inside the pot dramatically and thus setting it prematurely. So it's already starting to simmer, as you can see. And we'll take its temperature. Okay, so we are at just about 44 degrees Celsius here. Okay, so it's simmering, so we're good here. I can go in with the previously mixed Louis Francois yellow pectin and sugar. And we're going to let this boil for about 30 seconds to kind of activate the pectin. And remember what I said about the temperature being so sensitive. One of the things that I did was I previously heated the glucose syrup in the microwave. You could do it in a saucepan as well. As long as it's warm when you stream it in, you should have a fast recovery and the temperature won't drop dramatically inside the pan, because that is important. Okay, so you see our raspberry puree is boiling, our pectin is activating. And I'm going to stream in the glucose syrup right away. There we are. And this is 42 DE, which means dextrose equivalent. It doesn't have to be any higher than that. Glucose syrup is the hydrolysis of potato, corn, or wheat starch. Get all of it in. And the one disappointing thing about doing a live stream on a meeting like this is you can't smell the amazing vanilla, cacao, and raspberry and how they're going to be so harmonious. So I want everybody to make this recipe in their laboratory and then let me know if you like it. Okay.
I've asked if this recipe is available anywhere, right?
Yeah, it's on my webpage, krissharvey.com. I have a subscription service. You can get it there, but I think we should probably provide it.
Yeah,
afterwards.
absolutely.
No problem. But lots of recipes on my website. Okay, so I'm streaming in the sugar. You see how the temperature dropped and it stopped boiling? You want to wait for it to recover before you add another third of the sugar. Okay, you see how it stops? So this is why you don't just dump all the sugar in at one time. Now I have a Mexican vanilla bean. I'm gonna scrape it and add it to the mixture. Don't get burned, Kriss, though, because this will spit at you. Okay. Most of my cooks over the years hate making pâte because it can be very volatile. But I don't worry about it. Just wear long sleeves. Okay, split your vanilla bean, just the scrapings. Okay, but do not throw the vanilla bean away though, because I'm going to show you what I do with it. But that's an essential part of this recipe as well. It's not just the seeds, but the inside or the outside, I should say. Okay. Okay. I love raspberry and vanilla together. Okay, so you can still see that the mixture is quite watery. And we want to cook that water out. We want to cook this to 105 degrees Celsius, but I'm not just going to test it on the thermometer. I'm going to test the total sugar on a refractometer. And this is important to have if you're a confectioner. This will prevent any mold from growing on your sugar candies and make sure you're the right texture for packaging. Okay, and you see in just 30 seconds or so, the color of it changes. It's reading at 103 degrees Celsius, so we have to go a little bit longer. When it gets closer to 105 Celsius, we're going to start measuring the total sugar on the refractometer. Any questions so far? Are we seeing anything?
Just a lot of people remember Nigeria and Arab Emirates.
Hello, Emirates. Hello, Nigeria. So neat to have you on here. I'm opening my 2 brands in Los Angeles this year, and I'm talking to somebody about licensing the chocolate brand in the Mideast, so you can see me there in Kuwait. It's kind of a secret, but I'll let you all know. But that's kind of where I would like the business to grow to. I think it's a great clientele. They're going to love having a Beverly Hills brand out there. Okay. So we are just over 103 now. So it's interesting when you make a traditional candy like this to integrate other ingredients into it. It is unusual to add chocolate to a sugar candy like this. This is not something you typically see in France. They cook from the repertoire. They kind of cook what they understand and what they know. But I am trained in France, but I live in the United States. So to me, anything goes. So if I wanted to add, fresh basil to this or mint or some kind of herb, I would do it the day before to make the infusion, strain it out of the puree, rectify it with more puree to get it back up to the calculated amount that I need. And then I would proceed as usual. Okay.
I'm just curious why it appears black in color now.
Well, it's not black in color. It's just getting richer in red color because you're cooking the water out of it. So it's a good question. So one of my special skills that always impresses my cooks is I can walk up to something and tell you what temperature it is. And it's not because I'm some genius. It's because if you do it correctly, it looks the same way every time you do it. Okay. And so I can walk up to boiling pâte and say, I think that's 104 and be pretty close to accurate. Okay, and it's really the size of the bubble I'm looking at. So we're at 104.2. So I'm going to take this off the heat for 1 second. Okay, this is my refractometer. So I put a little bit of water on it just to tear it out. It works just like a scale does. Okay, I press 0, just like a scale. Get rid of the water. Get a sample. Make sure you cover the lens. It says 75 Brix. So that is exactly where I want it to be. So before I finish it with the acid, remember the acid sets the pectin permanently. I'm going to work in Roberto's Amazing Chocolate. Mexican chocolate is very popular in France. I see Pierre Hermé using Mexican chocolate and Mexican vanilla. It's very inspiring to go to France and see ingredients from North America being used there. Okay, so when you add the chocolate to the pâte de fruits, even though we've talked about cooking the water out of the sugar candy to the chocolate, there's still water there, okay? So they don't like each other, so you have to make them like each other. So you really have to whisk, just like making a ganache, whisk the chocolate into the pâte de fruits. Okay, and further, to use a spatula to make sure it's all integrated properly.
Is there more pectin than usual when adding chocolate due to the fat content?
So they're asking if there's more pectin added to it than usual, and the answer is no. The pectin amount is determined by the fruit itself and how much acid. So the higher the acid in the fruit, the more pectin you're going to have to add. And I'm going to talk about acid in the fruit here momentarily after we get this molded. Okay, so I just added the acid, the citric acid. We'll let it boil for just a few seconds. And then we're going to put it into our mold. Our molds are solid on bottom, so I'm going to use a flood and scrape method because it works a lot quicker. Okay. Okay. Now, Priest, can you tell them how good it smells in here right now?
It smells amazing.
Okay. See that? She's going to be my publicist from now on.
If it wasn't hot, I might try to sneak it.
Yeah, definitely don't put your finger into this.
Someone's asking if you use the refractometer to see the stage of the sugar.
Yes, that's what it is.
Okay.
Yeah, it measures total sugar. And that's a more modern refractometer. It's an instant read. It's pretty expensive. It's from a Japanese company called Atago. Costs about $500 or $600, I think. But I do a lot of gummy candy consultation, not just pâte de fruits. I invented a vegan gummy that people are using in the nutraceutical space. So I do a lot of testing for them. And it's important that those gummies have a very long shelf life, and a long shelf life and would be 9 months. And they go much longer than that, obviously, but 9 months is the minimum. And so once they're packaged, you want to make sure that no mold or spores grow on them. Okay, so there is our pâte de fruits. We're going to let that set up.
Is this a silicone mold?
This is a silicone mold. It's from Pavoni. It's called Choco Flex. Again, not traditional to have it in this shape, but I'm opening a brand, and I love tradition. I love the tradition, but Americans don't really understand pâte de fruits. But I'm going to do my best to kind of modernize it for the American palate as well. And it's a good value-added item for your shop or your restaurant as a petit four or New Year's or Sunday brunch, because they are easy to make. They have a long shelf life. A little bit easier to do in a drier environment. In Los Angeles, it's very dry. We don't have any humidity issues like you do in some parts of the world. So it's easier to do both. Some of the tips for pâte de fruits is when they come out of the mold, you want to desiccate them a little bit. So coat them in sugar and let them sit on a rack in a dry area overnight. It might take 2 to 3 days until they're kind of crusted over. But it's definitely beneficial to do it that way. Some of the best pâte de fruits I ever had was from Henri Leroux, which is a caramel and chocolate maker in Brittany. And Henri Leroux, they don't coat them in sugar; they just desiccate them and serve them like that. And I thought, it's very daring in France not to coat them in sugar, but at the same time, you tasted more of the fruit, so it was very, very interesting. So I want to talk a little bit about what I mentioned earlier about saving your spent vanilla beans. So when I was in France as an apprentice to Joël Bellouet, we used to take all of our spent vanilla beans and put them into a small cup and put them on top of the Euro 4 oven and let them dry out. And then after we had a collection of them, we grind them up to a fine powder, and then sieve them. And that's what I have here. So Carissa can show you. These are all the vanilla beans that I've scraped over a period of a few weeks. I dried them in a low oven, or if you have a dehydrator, put them in a dehydrator, or if you're patient, you can just let them dry at room temperature. And then I put them in a blender, grind them to a fine powder, and I put them through a fine sieve. And this is one way to help utilize everything that you purchase, because everything you purchase costs you money, and there's a cost to the earth. So there's somebody picking these vanilla beans in Mexico who has no idea who I am. Out of respect for them, I'm going to utilize every millimeter of their hard work. The same thing with the cacao. Someone is picking and growing the cacao beans somewhere in Africa, somewhere in Latin America, somewhere in Asia. And out of respect for them, I'm going to utilize it to the best of my ability. And I can tell you a great story. I used to work for Joel Robuchon, with a very famous chef. Mr. Robuchon wanted to be a Catholic priest, but due to the war in France, World War II, he was forced to become a dishwasher and then learned to cook and became a great chef. But he used to walk around the kitchen and he would say to the other chefs, not in pastry, but he would say to the other chefs, and I'd overhear him, he would say, "That fish gave up its life for the guest tonight. Your cooking better be worth that fish's life." And I thought, wow, that means a lot. And that is so true. So out of respect to Mother Nature and the gifts that she grows for us, it's important to, with respect to her, utilize every bit of what we do here. So,
Do you have another question? Would you advise checking the percentage of humidity?
yeah, that's a problem around the world. Like I said, only in California do we have very low humidity. But yeah, definitely, especially if you're a confectioner, because humidity is the enemy of sugar candy. So yeah, if you can keep it under 40% in your laboratory, and once it leaves your laboratory, who knows what's going to happen to it? But that's life, So if your guests buy it, it's out of your control, so you can't control everything. But in your shop, under 40% for sure. Any more questions coming in? I have some already ready to go. I already prepared this yesterday. So let me show you what the pâte fruit looks like today. So I have his cocoa nibs from Roberto's company. And I'm going to add a little bit of the vanilla powder to this. Vanilla and chocolate, and I'll just say chocolate, not cacao, are obviously the two most important flavors on the planet. Now, we love salt, right? We love salt and pepper, all the basic things. But if vanilla wasn't so important, then every chocolate manufacturer wouldn't put it in the chocolate. There, that's enough said about that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so I have a little block for presentation here. There's the pâte fruit, and it's coming out of the mold so easily. And this pâte fruit, because of the addition of the chocolate, has a very creamy texture. And you can see it's set though, right? Okay. And we'll go, again, not traditional, but nobody in France will sue me. I'm in Beverly Hills for doing something so different to their pâte fruit.
Someone's asking, how do you choose vanilla, chef? What do you look for?
That's a good question. So they're asking, how do you choose the variety of vanilla for what you're preparing? That is a great question. I see a lot of people like to make ice cream from Tahiti vanilla beans, but I find Tahiti vanilla beans to be too sweet for ice cream. So I like the bourbon variety. When I say bourbon vanilla, that was the original vanilla bean found in the Bourbon Islands, which is now known as Reunion, which is a French colony. That type of vanilla bean tends to be a little bit spicier, less sweet, still aromatic, and better for ice cream. I love Tahiti vanilla bean in salted butter caramel because I think it's sweet enough to kind of handle that. And I love the Tahiti style with chocolate as well. I think they're a perfect pairing. But there's great vanilla beans out of Mexico, Uganda, that all have kind of a unique aroma to them. Sometimes they smell of suede or leather. They can be a little bit peppery. They're really amazing. And just so everybody knows, it takes about 2 years to grow one vanilla bean or off the orchid itself. So it's really nothing that you can do to manipulate it. That's why I laugh every time I see something that says organic vanilla bean. There really is nothing you can do to the plant itself. It just takes humidity, heat, and time. And then once it becomes ready to pollinated, they have to do it all in one day. So they actually take the male part of the flower and the female part of the flower with tweezers and they connect them. And then sometime later, green vanilla beans, 8 to 10 centimeters, start growing. And it really is amazing. And you can thank Mother Nature for the most amazing aroma, thanks to just the heat and humidity of these tropical areas that the vanilla bean grows in. Which is also important to note, it grows in the same zone that we get pineapples from, that we get cacao from, that we get bananas from. And it's not an accident that all those things taste really good together. This is how it's done. This is how Mother Nature intended it. This is why when I see people put desserts together that are a mix of strawberry banana, that makes no sense to me. But strawberry with red currant, that makes sense to me. Strawberry and raspberry, that makes sense to me. But I like my tropical fruits with other tropical fruits, and vanilla is the perfect pairing for that. Okay.
Speaking of tropical fruits, we have a question for pâte à fouille. Can we use tropical fruits like pineapple?
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So let me talk to you a little bit about when you start using high acid fruits with pectin. So modern pectin today is buffered. Back when I started my career, we didn't understand all these things about science. We would make two types of pâte à fouille. We make pâte à fouille with low acid fruits like raspberry, strawberry, apricot, peach, etc. And we'd use 100% of the fruit. Okay. When we would make lemon pâte à fouille or passion fruit pâte à fouille, we would use a base fruit to cut the acidity. And the base fruit would be a bland fruit like apricot or pear, but it would bring fiber to it. And you couldn't really taste the apricot or the pear, but it would bring kind of a weird texture to the pâte à fouille. And that's because the pectin wasn't buffered with sodium citrate. And what I mean by that is the acid in the fruit when you're cooking it would prematurely set the pectin. Now, modern pectin from Louis Francois, the yellow pectin, is buffered. So you no longer need a base fruit when making a high acid pâte à fouille. So you can make a pineapple pâte à fouille, a passion fruit pâte à fouille, or a yuzu or sudachi pâte à fouille with 100% of the fruit. So it has kind of a more true flavor. And by the way, all those fruits are great with vanilla bean as well.
Mango,
especially citrus.
Mangoes, is that also possible?
No, mango isn't a high acid fruit.
Okay.
Mango is not a high acid fruit. Mango pâte à fouille, by the way, another great fruit with vanilla. That's one of my favorite combinations. Mango and vanilla is incredible together, especially like in sorbet or ice cream. I love mango with ice cream. I love going to an Indian restaurant and getting a lassi and imagining that with lime and vanilla is so good.
One more question. Can you share some variations for pâte à fouille coating?
Yeah, I mean, it depends. You can make vanilla sugar too and coat it in vanilla sugar as well. It's an interesting question, or you can make an herb sugar. I have a rosemary bush in front of my home in Los Angeles, and I just steeped it in apricot puree. I made an apricot pâte à fouille with an infusion of rosemary, and then salted butter and caramel. It has an amazing texture. I'm doing that with Louis Francois in a few weeks at IBIE in Las Vegas. But yeah, I mean, if you want to put herbs into the sugar or some kind of spice, you can absolutely do that. Again, it's not very traditional in France. France likes their food kind of to be straightforward. That's where I learned my profession. And I do truly respect that. But I also know my audience is completely different. And Angelinos are very adventurous eaters. And I think this is something that would kind of resonate with them, with the ground cocoa nibs. Plus, it's an amazing pairing it with the raspberry and the vanilla. It smells amazing in here right now, by the way.
It
Does
does.
it not?
It
Yeah.
does. When you had me smell the chocolate yesterday, I mentioned it smelled a little bit like coffee.
Yes, it does. Yes, and that's no accident. As I told Parisa, going back to what I said, things that grow near each other tend to taste good, okay, together. And this is why before this world had modern transportation, everybody ate regionally. There's different regions of France that, they eat differently in Saint-Tropez than they do in Brittany. And they do that because they weren't going back and forth on a high-speed train or driving there for weekends. They were just eating what they grew. And this is how we get potato leek soup, right? A vichyssoise. The potatoes and the leeks grow in the same sandy area, and they grow near each other. They grow in the dirt, and they're very humble ingredients, but they taste amazing together when prepared correctly. We have more questions?
Yes. Can you share any Asian flavor pairings for vanilla?
Oh, see, now I grew up in an Asian household, and I know you're looking at me and I'm white. So let me tell you a funny story. I grew up in a multicultural house. My family were French. In the 1970s, my mom, who was a great person, raised two Southeast Asian families from Thailand and Vietnam. So from about 8 years old on, I grew up in a mixed household of Southeast Asian and my American roots, but from my family were immigrants from Europe. So for me, growing up in an Asian household, I always kind of lean towards Asian flavors. So I love star anise. I love ginger. I love togarashi. Togarashi, which is a Japanese spice blend, is great in yogurt ice cream or yogurt sorbet. I love lemongrass. These are things that I grew up. My mother grew lemongrass and Thai basil and Thai chilies. All of these things are amazing with chocolate in either ganache or in this pâte de fruits. These are amazing flavor combinations.
Someone mentioned pandan.
Oh, I love pandan too. Pandan is another Southeast Asian leaf. You can buy it frozen or get it fresh if you're lucky to have a lot of Asian markets near you, but you just kind of chop it up and infuse it into your dairy to make an amazing ice cream. It has a flavor of jasmine or almond. In fact, in Thailand, they put it in the rice when they cook it. So it's one of my favorite flavors. And I love sour citrus from Asia too. Calamansi from the Philippines, sudashi, yuzu, bergamot, which is what, they traditionally use bergamot oil to make Earl Grey tea, to flavor Earl Grey tea. But the juice is very sour. It is amazing with vanilla too. Whether you're making sorbet or granita with it, it's an amazing fruit.
How about durian?
Oh, no durian. I'm never working with that. I was saying, I opened up durian one time. I handed it to my Chinese kitchen staff, and even they wouldn't eat it. So don't eat that durian, I'm telling you.
Someone said they got vanilla sugar, white in color, in Pakistan. Is that a copy of this vanilla powder they're asking?
No, vanilla sugar is sucrose or table sugar with vanilla added to it. So I make vanilla sugar too. And we put a pinch in our madeleines and our sponge cakes. So this is why I dry this out. I mix it with a little bit of sugar. I think my ratio is for every 100 grams of sucrose, I add 5 grams of vanilla powder, toss it up together, put that in your cabinet, and put that in everything that you bake. Okay.
Those are all the questions I can see as of right now. People are thanking you for.
Well, you can reach out to me on my social media too, at Kriss Harvey. Just spell my name, KRISSHARVEY. You'll find me on mostly Instagram, but I have a YouTube channel and TikTok and all that good stuff. So thank you all for coming. Any more questions or comments? You can always reach me on my social media. Look forward to seeing everybody over there. And thank you for staying awake or at attention for this webinar.